Welcome in, everyone. It's the City Commissioner's Report. I'm Andrew Joyce, talking today with Pikeville City Commissioner Barry Cheney. Barry, welcome in.
Thank you, Andrew. Good to be here.
It's always a pleasure. And you and I, we have a chance to talk on various settings, usually around car shows.
Yes,
and some of the classic cars that come into
Yeah.
Pikeville, of course, every month with the Muzzle-On main event. But today, a much more serious topic we talk about, and that's the airport. Commercial airlines coming to Pikeville, Pike County, maybe trying to clear the air, if you will, about some of the topics that have come up and surrounded that. But first of all, the airport board, of course, our chairman with us today, Bill Hickman, and who better to ask than some of those questions?
He's the expert.
He should be.
Yes,
Chairman of that board, and I know Bill Hickman will try to clear up some of those issues today. Welcome in.
Good morning.
Great to be here. Barry, first, I think we should start with the commercial airline coming to Pikeville, Pike County.
Well, before we do, Andrew, if you don't mind, I'm not trying to take over.
It's the City Commissioner's Report with Barry Cheney. It's your show.
Oh, okay. I'd like for Bill to talk about a little bit about the airport and a special event that started today that he may want to talk about before we get started into commercial air service. What about the history of the airport, Bill? How did the airport come about? How did the land get purchased and all that?
Well, I know more about the modern, what I would call the modern history of the airport than I do the ancient history. The original project started back in the early 60s with Mayor Hamley. Judge Rutherford, I think, has explained that history in great detail and is much more familiar with that than I am. However, in the modern history, what I call the modern history of the airport, Judge Rutherford and the county contributed money in the early 80s to build a runway, and the Hatcher family contributed the land, which absolutely was the key part of having the airport, was getting the land and getting it free.
Sure.
Unfortunately, after a few years, that runway started slipping off the mountain. There's 3 or 4 landslides that have put that runway completely out of service. And it's been closed for 20 years or so. The runway that you see now when you go to the airport was built in the early 90s with around $4.5 million or so of FAA money, with a 2.5% contribution from the state, and I believe a 2.5% contribution from the county or severance tax money. I wasn't on the board and I don't know for sure.
Sure.
But when you go up there today, that's what you see, is FAA money that is nearing $7 million at this point in total FAA contributions.
Well,
It's a beautiful facility,
Yes,
and very serviceable facility, of course, with the terminal there, with the runway, as you said, which I know has had a lot of money put into. Wildlife were an issue, and I know that it was a great project to get the entire runway area fenced and protected from the wildlife.
Yes, we're fortunate to have it entirely fenced in, but every now and then a young elk can still take a run to go and jump over top of that fence. It's unbelievable to me, but we had 3 do that recently. So the guys at the airport still have to be attentive to keep the elk away. Deer can't jump it, but the elk can.
It's phenomenal. It's a great facility, and we're fortunate in Eastern Kentucky here in Pikeville and Pike County to have that facility available to us. And obviously it's very functional as it sits now, as we have commercial airlines that are interested in coming to Pikeville, Pike County. It's an important endeavor for not just the airport board, fans and friends of the airport, but for the economy in Eastern Kentucky.
Well, also for the kids.
Sure.
Andrew, today is the first day of aviation camp down there. I was down there a few years ago when they were talking about aviation camp and scholarships for aviation camp. But Bill, what about, how many kids have you got down there today?
Well, The reason I don't wear a suit today is because I'm already sweaty from being out with the kids up at the airport. We have 27 young kids between 10 years old and 16 years old that are attending a 2-day aviation camp.
Wow.
That's put on by the Kentucky Aviation Museum in Lexington. They bring flight simulators and all kinds of materials, and the kids also get to actually handle a small single-engine airplane under close supervision,
Sure.
of course, and they get to feel the maneuvering qualities of the airplane. It's a fantastic experience, and we have a graduate up there that Brianna Bentley, who's recently gotten her license, and will start Emory Riddle Aviation College in Florida this
Right.
fall. So it's a tremendous success story.
And how old is she?
I don't like to guess a woman's
teenager.
age, but I'm going to say 18.
Yeah. So a teenager on her way to college who's a graduate of the aviation camp. And obviously a love of aviation is why you're a part of the airport board.
That's correct.
You have to build that love for aviation at a young age, just as I have a passionate love of baseball that began at a very young age. And as we expose our children to many things, aviation being one, as young as 10 years old today, it's incredible.
Well, you know, Andrew, when I was elected city commissioner, the first meeting that I ever attended was an airport board meeting. And I've been to many since then, and I've learned a whole lot about the airport and the importance of the airport.
Sure.
And one of the things that has always been of interest here in Pike County is getting commercial air service. Sure. And I think that Bill was approached early on by, I think, the Chamber of Commerce. Why don't you tell a little bit about that, Bill?
I was first approached by the Chamber of Commerce several years ago now, I don't remember exactly, with the concept of trying to get commercial air service in this area. And at first I wasn't convinced that it was a doable project myself. And only after spending several years working on this project have I become convinced that it's worth trying to see if it will work.
Sure.
Especially if we can try it without diversion of local money that's needed desperately by the county and the city.
And one of the things about that to me is, you know, this is our local business community, and they're saying we need this. We need this to grow. We need this to grow our business. We need this to diversify the economy in our area. And I think when our business community is crying out for something like this, I think we need to listen. And I think the city of Pikeville got on board just shortly thereafter.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. And when the Essential Air Service grant request was submitted, it was submitted with the most business support in terms of numbers of letters from different business people and professionals in the United States. I don't remember the exact number of applications, but it was upwards of 80 or so applications. And I think that our support was practically double the nearest one.
The Pike County Airport, obviously very important to the economy, not just for Pikeville, not just for Pike County, but for all of Eastern Kentucky, being a regional hub, and commercial air service certainly would help the entire region.
You know, I think too, Andrew, if you look at you know, where we're located, we're isolated to an extent. To get to another airfield that has commercial air service, it's a 3-hour drive. That's one of the hindrances for us in recruiting recruiting tech companies in. I'm not talking about call centers, but I'm talking about tech companies that would come in and put data centers and other centers in where that you know, that they could do business around the world. But the drawback to getting those companies in here that would provide career jobs. I'm talking about those jobs that the people make $60, $70, $80, and $100,000 a year, and get to come to work in a suit and tie and shirt and khakis. instead of putting on a mining belt. And you know, I would love to see our young people have that opportunity, but the hindrance to getting those companies to come in here is our isolation.
It's the City Commissioner's report. We're talking with Pikeville City Commissioner Barry Cheney and Pikeville-Pike County Airport Board Chairman Bill Hickman. And we talk about a global economy. We talk about diversification. The coal industry, which we're huge supporters of. The coal industry fuels this area, not just with our power, but with jobs, with the trickle-down monies that affect all of our businesses, whether it be a retail establishment, our hospitals, whatever the case may be. That money trickles down to those.
But you know, also with that said, Andrew, you know, one of the things that we've got to understand in this, when we are competing for corporations or other businesses to come in to this economy, we're not just competing with Floyd County or any part in eastern Kentucky, because that's really not a competition for us. Well, who we're competing with is the thousands and thousands and thousands of cities across America and throughout the world. And you know, commercial air service does put you on a level playing field with the biggest part of those other areas, because they're not going to invest money here when they can go and invest money somewhere else that does have this service. That's why it's so important. And you know, if we do not diversify, we're going to be at the mercy of the coal market until our coal is gone.
And right now, with the coal industry being under attack from the EPA, it certainly has taken a hit. The market right now certainly has a lot of fear in the industry as well. Diversification is a tremendous thing, and it's something that we must have if this area will survive 20 years down the road.
Absolutely.
And Andrew, to interrupt, perhaps until recently, the airport's been one of the best kept secrets in the area. But some of the things that aren't commonly known include things like Lowe's flies their corporate jet in here on a regular basis. That's the way the Lowe's management supervises the store. The Kellogg's factory is in and out of here virtually on a weekly basis. EQT is in here on virtually a weekly basis. 3 or 4 weeks ago, the Justice family that owns the Greenbrier Country Club had 3 jets up at the airport at the same time.
Wow.
With different members of management looking into their projects in eastern Kentucky.
Sure.
I was frankly surprised at how much traffic the airport gets, and I'm up there almost every day. A recent study we did involved compiling over the past 3 years the larger aircraft that file instrument flight plans into and out of Pikeville Airport. 4,800 in round numbers in the last 3 years. Now, that doesn't include single engine and small twins or helicopters that just fly in and out on a clear day.
Sure.
I'm talking about instrument flight plans. And I found that absolutely amazing.
You mentioned EQT, you mentioned Kellogg's, you mentioned Lowe's, certainly national companies, but commercial air service would also open that up for international companies that might want to relocate or have some type of branch or factory or, as you said, a technical center here in Pikeville or Pike County or in the eastern Kentucky region.
Absolutely.
I may have left out perhaps the most important customer we have. Cleveland Clinic has its own jet airplanes, and they're in and out of here on a regular basis for medical reasons. And it would be just great to have commercial service to a hub.
You're tuned to the City Commissioner's report. We talked with Pikeville City Commissioner Barry Cheney and Pikeville-Pike County Airport Board Chairman Bill Hickman. We support the commercial air service. I think that's obvious, but I think probably need to talk about some of the other folks that are supporters of this. There's a large list of leaders that support the commercial air service, like Congressman Hal Rogers.
Absolutely. And
a long list of others. You may have that.
Congressman Hal Rogers supports it. He's a staunch supporter of it.
Sure.
Senator Mitch McConnell, Senator Rand Paul. You've got House Speaker Stumbo, who has been a strong advocate for it. Secretary Hayes of the Economic Development Cabinet in Frankfurt, he's a big supporter of it. Mike Hayden with the governor's office, and the governor's office is very much in support of this. Well, of course, you've got Representative Leslie Combs and Representative W. Keith Hall, and of course, you've got Senator Ray Jones. But also with those, you have the Floyd County Fiscal Court is in strong support of this, because commercial air service would only be about 25 minutes away from Prestonsburg. You know, they see the great value in this. Judge Randy Thompson over in Knott County, he supports this. And you've got the Airport Board, of course, and the Chamber of Commerce, which this has been one of their main issues to get accomplished. One of their main projects to get accomplished is to have commercial air service. And of course, the City of Pikeville.
Obviously, the City of Pikeville, a supporter of this, the now Southeast Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, the Airport Board, realizing the importance of commercial air service, but also Pike County in the origins of what has now become an issue. They are agreed to be part of the commercial air study, if I'm not misunderstanding.
They did. They were part of the air study to start, and at the request of the county judge, they withdrew before the air study had gotten started. I think we just hired Luke Smith to perform the study, and Judge Rutherford asked that the county be withdrawn from that study.
Well, let's not leave out the support that Judge Rutherford has given the airport. I understand the county's inability to provide financial help. Judge Rutherford has always been supportive of the airport when I've talked to him. I think he's expressed that support. And I understand the limitations that the county is in when it comes to money itself. And that's the reason that the airport has not asked the county for any money for the study. The other three parties have had access to money, and they've stepped up and paid the extra money. Yeah. I understand that the county is in desperate condition, and the airport has assumed the payroll of the employees the last 2 or 3 years. Some people think that $6 million is a lot of money when it comes to an airport.
Right.
Unfortunately, $6 million is not a lot of money when it comes to an airport. We recently had to spend, I think it was between $400,000 and $500,000 to do repairs to the airport runway, and that consisted of just a couple of 100 feet on each end of the runway. And the reason was that dips were starting to form in the runway. That doesn't impact a single-engine plane or most twin-engine planes,
right?
But it's terrible for a jet. So we received a lot of complaints from the jet traffic about those 2 dips in the runway. There was no funding available anyplace else, so thank goodness the airport had $300,000 or $400,000 to spend on that. And one of those dips, particularly the one on the west end, is a recurring problem. The FAA repaired that dip about 10 or 11 years ago. We had to go back in and repair it again, and I anticipate that will have to be done again fairly soon. Now, it cost $4.5–5 million to blacktop that runway 20 years ago.
Right.
We are past due on resurfacing the entire runway. That project alone will probably cost $5 or $6 million if we have to use local funds. And of course, we're pleased to have those funds, even though they are restricted by FAA regulation on what we're allowed to spend them for. But infrastructure and capital improvement is the main thing that we're allowed to spend that $6 million for.
So you can't just go out and write a check.
No, we can't.
As some have suggested, and that's what we want to try to clear up today, is the $6 million. And I think that's a great explanation of what those funds are intended for and can only be used for, as opposed to just willy-nilly, let's write $1 million check.
Well,
and
go ahead, Bill.
there's something else that nobody knows yet because I just did this yesterday. I spoke with the FAA supervisor that's in charge of this airport in Memphis yesterday, and I asked him about the use of those funds for this project. He doesn't think that it's permissible. He has agreed to submit a request to Washington to find out whether it's permissible or not. He thinks it's not. Unfortunately for us, we probably won't know the answer to that until it's too late.
Well, backing up just a little bit about the $6 million that the Pike County Pikeville Airport has, you know, you all have used the interest from that money to pay your local employees down there and to support the airport, and that way you wouldn't be a drain on the city of Pikeville or the Pike County Fiscal Court.
That's exactly right. The airport is trying its best not to be a fiscal drain to either of the government entities that own the airport.
Yeah. And you know, when the city of Pikeville bought the property from Marion's Branch property from the Pikeville Pike County Airport, one of the things that I was surprised about was all the regulation and all the hoops you had to jump through with the FAA. You know, we had requested that maybe they would donate that property to the city of Pikeville since it was going to be used for middle-income housing, and some of the people were in favor of that. But the FAA said no. We had to submit what we would be willing to pay for it. An appraisal had to be submitted. That had to go to the FAA and be approved before we could even purchase the property. So there are a lot of hoops with the FAA that you've got to jump through.
Actually, there were multiple appraisals that had to be obtained, and they had to be obtained from appraisers who had federal certification.
Yes.
The FAA had to approve the certification of the appraisers. We had to go to Ashland to get one of the appraisals because there wasn't anybody any closer to Pikeville that had the right certification that wasn't already involved.
Right.
Wow.
I was surprised at how difficult it was to get appraisals that the FAA would accept. I thought for a while we might even have to go to Cincinnati or Lexington to find help.
Yeah. But you know, the good reason, the reason that's like that is to protect airports from local governments that may have deficits in budget and see the local airport as a way to make up that deficit. So it's all to protect your local airport from being cannibalized, I guess you'd say.
Well, as much as I like the county and the city, I don't blame you guys for wanting the money.
Of course, the commercial air study completed. Once it was completed, with federal and state legislatures, a small air grant has been awarded.
Well, you know, $750,000, you know, is a pretty good grant, and that was with Congressman Rogers' help, and that was to support commercial air service. And you know, the process that we're going through is a standard format for getting commercial air service started anywhere, because it has to start with subsidies. And so this is a standard format, and the request for different grants. And one of the funds that is going to be available for this local air service is a $500,000 travel bank, which people that are businesses in the Chamber of Commerce are already willing to put up as soon as co-severance money is secured.
So the Chamber, realizing the importance at the onset, more than 200 businesses on board with this. They supported this project. They're willing to put up the money.
They're willing,
guaranteeing that we need this type of travel.
Absolutely.
And that's not just Pike County. That comes from a 10 or 11 county area, which includes a county in West Virginia, a couple of counties in Virginia. It's had widespread support.
Yeah, and even the Department of Local Government, DLG, where these multi-county co-severance funds go through, actually did an independent study of the study that was done by the City of Pikeville, Chamber of Commerce, and Pike County Pikeville Airport Board. And you know, their findings were the same, that's what I understand. Is that correct, Bill?
I lost track there for a second.
Oh, the DLG's airport study.
Yes. Yes, everybody is in agreement, and the primary reason I think for the agreement is that we're centrally located and we have an instrument landing approach system, which is the only one in this part of Kentucky. Now, there is an instrument landing system at Wise, Virginia, which is very short distance from an air mile standpoint. I think probably the ILS that Governor Patton helped us get when he was in office is probably the key component that puts us in the position we're in. Now, we're in danger of losing that position if we don't get commercial air service.
Sure.
The FAA has a runway safety area study that they do on airports periodically. When the runway that we have now was built, it was built like the Field of Dreams. We will build it and they will come.
Yes.
The problem is that the category of airplane that is required for us to keep the length of runway we have didn't come in large enough numbers. We're averaging about 40 flights a year for the last 3 years of airplanes that are the size we need. If we had commercial air service, we would be able to maintain our runway and the length that the runway is now. In Frankfurt, within the next 2 to 3 months, the FAA is requiring that they dig up 500 feet of their runway.
Wow.
In Ashland, Kentucky, the FAA has just required that they stripe off as not being a part of the runway you can use 200 feet. We appear to be next on that list. And I view it as critical that we get commercial air service, or at least try our very best to get it, because if we don't, we will probably lose part of our runway.
Bill, as chairman of the Pikeville-Pike County Airport Board, what's the size of the runway now? What type of plane can it handle, just for the sake of those that are tuned in that may not have knowledge?
Well, right now, the usable part of the runway, as I understand it, is 5,350 feet in length and 100 feet in width. Probably the biggest plane that we've had in here have been Oprah Winfrey's global airplane that she chose to fly into Pikeville instead of Huntington or Charleston.
Right.
We've had a couple of 737s, I believe, when the Clintons were campaigning, come in and out quickly. Kellogg's jet is one of the larger planes, and they can't land on our field even at 5,350 feet
Right.
if it's wet.
Wow.
Because they're afraid they can't stop. So the length of the runway is just absolutely critical.
Commercial air service, if it ever comes to the Pikeville-Pike County Airport, you can't lose any of the runway you have now. It just wouldn't be feasible.
As far as I know, we need every inch of it.
Well, now, what I understand you're saying, Bill, is if commercial air service is not in place, the FAA will shorten our runway, which will end any hope of ever being able to get commercial air service.
It's my belief that this is a window of opportunity where everything is lined up the best it's ever lined up, and if we don't try it now, I don't believe it will ever happen.
You're tuned to the City Commissioner's Report, joined by Pikeville City Commissioner Barry Cheney and Pikeville-Pike County Airport Board Chairman Bill Hickman, just trying to clear the air and answer some questions about the commercial air service and the possibility of it coming to the Pikeville-Pike County Airport. Barry, a study's been done. A $750,000 grant has been issued and awarded from the federal and state governments. That money's there.
Right.
But if that money, if my understanding is there has to be some local money's involved as
Well,
well, and if it's not there, that grant goes away.
Right. Well, now the travel bank money is ready to be put in. The component that we need right now is the $1 million multi-county coal severance money. And a little bit about multi-county money. It has to be agreed upon. The project, the economic development project that you have, it has to be agreed upon by 3 counties in order to get this money. It's not, you can't get this money to put water lines in. You can't put this money in a street somewhere. This is for economic development that will impact the region.
Sure.
This money, most of this money gets spent in the western part of the state.
Why is that?
I don't know if we just can't get together up here or what the problem is, but most of this money winds up being spent in the western part of the state. Even about 4 years ago, this multi-county coal severance money was being used to recruit one of our local businesses out of Pikeville down to the central part of the state.
Wow.
And I was pretty upset about that, but I was told that was the way it was, and that was the way it was going to stay.
Who controls these funds?
Well, this goes through the governor's office. Mm-hmm. The multi-county funds do. But now in eastern Kentucky right now, I want to point out too, Andrew, that the commercial air service application is the only application from eastern Kentucky and Pike County that's in there. I know it's the only one from Pike County, and I'm pretty sure it's the only one from eastern Kentucky that's in there. So if this $1 million doesn't come to support this commercial air service, this money is on its way to the western part or central part of the state.
This money is controlled by the governor's office, and an application has to go to the Department for Local Government.
The DLG has to go
DLG, that's where those funds are requested from. You've said that earlier that they had already done a study on the study.
That's right.
And agreed that it was worthy, it was feasible, and they agreed that the grant should be awarded. It has been. Now the money has to be there, or this project goes away.
Right. Well, both these studies show that after 2 years, that this commercial air service will be self-sustaining, and with the traffic that we're talking about, you can see that we've already got a good start.
Sure.
And one of the points about the Kellogg's plane, if it's impossible for it to leave here or land here, will we lose the Kellogg's factory? As you know, that's another part that I hadn't thought about.
You have to wonder.
I would hate to lose those hundreds of jobs that Kellogg's provides, because those are very good jobs.
And while we love our coal jobs, those are not coal jobs. There's something that we're trying to do on a daily basis is diversify the economy, and those are jobs that are needed.
Yeah. And I believe that's Hillman Dotson's district over there. That would take a lot of people that are employed from that area and put them on unemployment. And so that would have a direct impact on the Phelps, Kemper area. It would be devastating.
You talk about coal severance tax dollars, multi-county dollars, controlled by the governor's office and the Department of Local Government. And coal severance dollars, they're intended to diversify the economy.
Right.
There have been questions, why can't we take these dollars? We'd rather have these dollars to extend water lines to folks that need it. And folks that need water lines, they need water lines. But is it my understanding that these dollars can never be spent on water lines? They will go away.
They cannot. And it is the reason it's set up for that way. It has to be a project that will impact the region. That's why they require the 3 counties to come together and just simply approve a resolution that they're in support of spending this money for this particular project.
There's also been discussion that these dollars should go to tourism. The Hatfield and McCoy's miniseries has had a huge impact on tourism in our region. Most recently, that's been the biggest thing. Is we've been a hidden jewel for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
We have some great tourism activities that go on here, but these dollars, while they are to diversify the economy, let's talk about that. Could these dollars go to tourism?
Oh, well, no, not directly. But
Okay.
what better way to support tourism than commercial air service? If the guy from Missouri wants to come and explore the Hatfield-McCoy feud sites, you know, he might not want to spend a week or 2 weeks, you know, trying to travel here in the car. He may prefer to get on a plane, fly in, and spend 2 or 3 days renting a car in Pikeville, staying in our local hotels, buying our local food, and enjoying the sights.
We have Enterprise and 2 or 3 other car rental services that provide rental cars to travelers that come in here by airplane, and I'd say they would be tickled to death to get commercial air service. It's no telling how many cars they could rent.
Well, I think maybe I'm pretty sure Enterprise is a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm saying they're probably pulling for this as well.
Probably supporters, and as we all are. The Hatfield-McCoy series, just an example, because it brings tourism to Eastern Kentucky and Southern West Virginia, the region. You're talking about something that affects us all, and as a region, it's certainly done that. I've noticed tags on vehicles from probably 15 or 17 states. I've taken a look at some of the visitors to the Dills Cemetery site, and just take a look at the tags. They're already traveling by car. How much could those numbers increase?
Well,
if we have this service. Barry, you've traveled.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen travel packages, hotels, rentals, and air flights, all packaged in one package. I can see a tremendous benefit.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, how many people would use commercial air service to come in here for Hillbilly Days?
Sure.
To Musselon, Maine. You know, it would be great to put together a tourism package with the air travel, the hotel stay, maybe a concert at the Expo Center, and Musselon, Maine. I mean, the advantages to this are unlimited.
I would like to point out something about the studies that have been done. These studies take into account that there are certain kinds of commercial air travel that Pikeville will never compete for. Mm-hmm. We will never compete for the $89 air flight to Orlando, or one of those $99 special ones to a casino someplace.
Right.
That's not the kind of air travel that we intend to compete with, and the studies are taking that into account, that we will never compete in that market and have no intention of it.
Let's answer the question now, as you mentioned that. If it's not to compete with those types of flights, those type of travel, what type of flights would be in store for the commercial air traveler out of Pikeville Pike County Airport?
Well, the focus of the study is primarily business travel, and these studies were done before the Hatfield-McCoy TV series, so we never dreamed that was going to happen.
Right.
All of a sudden, we're back on the map again.
We are.
So that kind of travel, the medical field and the educational fields, those kinds of travel is what we're primarily looking at. And of course, the vacation traveler that doesn't want to go to Orlando, you know, there's a lot of other places in America that people go to that you can't fly to direct for $89.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a way in and out.
And it opens up the region. Closest commercial air service that we have from Pikeville, Pike County. Huntington?
Huntington is probably the closest, followed by Charleston, which in my mind the Charleston airport is on the wrong side of town, as well as the Lexington airport is on the wrong side of town.
Sure.
I hate driving to those two airports.
And from there, Tri-Cities?
Tri-Cities from there. And used to, Cincinnati was a great place to go to and leave. It's much further, but Delta has cut their flights back, my understanding is 80%, since they moved their hub to Detroit. So it's an opportunity, I think, is a once-in-a-lifetime chance.
Yeah. Another thing about this, you know, there was some, a few years back, there was some criticism, and there has been mentioned lately, about the city annexing the airport. And you know, when we talked about that, there were some important things that had to happen in order to get commercial air service back here when we were looking at it some years ago. tell them why that the city would have to.
The annexation of the airport into the city is what makes it possible to get commercial air service.
Yes.
One of the requirements is that you have fire protection on hand 30 minutes before an anticipated flight and 30 minutes after anticipated flight. I spoke with Judge Rutherford about that some time ago. The county is a part-time fire department system. The mayor of Coal Run attempted to annex the airport, and I met with her and we discussed the fact that she didn't have a full-time fire department.
They do a tremendous job.
They do a tremendous job.
The Coal Run Volunteer Fire Department, tremendous job, tremendous organization, but not a full-time
But not a
department.
full-time service. So by being annexed into the city, and I asked the mayor of Coal Run to stand down on their lawsuit with the city in order to permit the airport to have the possibility of commercial air service. I personally asked her to do that. With the city's full-time fire department, the city's full-time, very well-staffed police department, who is, we're in the process of installing cameras and a remote system that will permit the City of Pikeville Police Department to monitor the airport 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The cameras are already installed.
Yep.
The taping is already going on. And we're in the process of working out some internet glitches to get real time. Right now we're running about 30 seconds behind.
Yeah.
So if you can get in and out in 30 seconds, you might get away with something. But those things are critical to commercial air service, because if you don't have the ambulances, the fire trucks, and the security, you can't have commercial air service. And the city is the only place that the airport can get that service.
So the city, let me see if I'm clear on this. For commercial air service to be possible, there has to be full-time emergency and fire personnel.
That's correct.
The city annexed this property
That's right.
and agreed to provide full-time emergency and fire personnel so that commercial air service would be a possibility.
That's right.
That's correct.
And you know, any place that we annex, we have to provide full-time fire protection, emergency services, and police protection. And you know, Andrew, too, there's a lot of times that there's more city policemen on duty patrolling city limits at Pikeville than KSP has on duty patrolling 5 counties that they service.
Do a tremendous job, and that's what a full-service department, a full-time department does. And don't want to belittle the county volunteer fire departments by any means, because we have got some tremendous people, tremendous departments out there that take their job seriously and provide important services, whether it be Coal Run, we've already mentioned, or whomever. But they're not a full-time department, and that's what is required for the commercial air service.
They're not a full-time department, but I also want to commend those guys. All those fire departments are made up of real community-minded people, and you know, they don't only provide fire service, but they also do a number of events throughout the county to help the quality of life in the county.
Stepping aside from the airport, as a personal injury attorney, I can tell you that those folks save a lot of lives in car wrecks.
Yes, they do. Tremendous job. Barry, it's the City Commissioner's Report with Barry Cheney, Pikeville City Commissioner, Pikeville Pike County Airport Board Chairman Bill Hickman. Annexation of the airport, I've heard in the past, and it's been made out to be a city-county issue. What I'm hearing today, and I'm being educated, that for commercial air service to be possible, it was a must-do for the city to annex to have that required service, the emergency fire departments full-time. It was a must-do. That takes the city-county out of it, because they couldn't do that. What does the county lose by the city annexing that airport?
Well, the county loses nothing. And in fact, any time the city annexes any part of the county, you know, the county doesn't lose any tax base or anything. In fact, it's an advantage for the county, because if there is a county road in that area that's annexed, the maintenance to that road falls then back to the city, that the city will have to maintain that road, and so it saves on that magistrate's budget and the county's budget whenever that happens.
So if the city annexes, and this goes for any city,
Yes.
Coal Run, Elkhorn City, Pikeville,
Yeah.
any city annexes a part of the county, number one, they're providing fire and emergency personnel,
Fire emergency,
those services,
yeah,
and then the streets would become part of the city system as
Yeah.
opposed to the county street or road system,
Right.
which takes that burden off the county as well.
Yeah,
Plus, the county never loses their tax base.
no, they never lose it, and it's sort of like free money after that. for
Well, and I want to add something to that discussion. The airport wants to be a good citizen of the city and the county.
Sure.
And we have assisted the county in consolidating all their emergency equipment on airport property at no charge, so that it can be high and dry, centrally located, accessible at any time, winter or summer. We also have a county garage facility up there that makes sure that the road to the airport is cleared when there's a snow, so that we have a way in and out for emergency air transportation. If Cleveland Clinic needs to come in here and get somebody, they can get in and out, and the county provides that service.
Yeah.
We're trying our best to be a good citizen of
Sure.
both constituencies.
Uh,
And our employees don't really appreciate the city taxes. I've got to tell you that.
Well, speaking of city taxes, though, when we did annex the airport, we suspended the tax that would have been placed on the planes that were housed down there, and that way it wouldn't discourage anybody from keeping them down there and taking them somewhere else. So we
The airport appreciated that
yeah,
too.
yeah, we dispensed with that. And
So what was the benefit of the city annexing the airport?
well, it was a way that commercial air service could come in. Outside of that, we probably would have not bothered with it. But the only reason that we did that was because our people need commercial air service.
I see that the city has incurred the cost with the annexation. You're now providing those services
Yes, sir.
full-time
Yes, we are.
emergency. That street, the roads, taken into the city system. So the city's incurred cost, and the only benefit is to benefit the entire region,
That's correct.
that being commercial air service, which I think everyone that we've talked to has been in agreement that it's needed for us to diversify the economy for the good of Pikeville, Pike County, the entire East Kentucky region. Barry, what needs to happen next? The $750,000 grant, it's out there, it's been approved. What needs to happen next?
Next thing that needs to happen is to get the multi-county coal severance money. That needs to happen. And all that's needed is a proclamation from fiscal court to support that multi-county money coming to this particular project.
And the Pike County Fiscal Court, originally a part of the study for
That's
commercial
correct.
air service, it's my understanding that they withdrew from that study at some point.
Well, but back up just a little bit before that, while they were still in, after the legislative session, all the multi-county money, the issue with University of Pikeville was still whether or not we could get that as a public university.
Sure.
All that money was going to go to that project, and the legislators didn't put it in a line item. So after that failed, after the session, we understood, or whether our board and our committee understood that they would need multi-county funds. And I understand that Speaker Stumbo and our committee did have a private meeting with Judge Rutherford explaining that they would need multi-county funds and they would need a resolution from the fiscal court stating that they would need that money. That was back in March.
I've personally met with Judge Rutherford several times, and outside of his physical restraints in terms of money, he's supportive of the project. And I have another meeting with Judge Rutherford Monday, and I'm hoping this matter can be completely resolved and we can move forward after discussion Monday.
So the $750,000 grant has been approved, federal and state money. Now multi-county coal severance money is needed. That's controlled by the governor's office, the Department of Local Government.
Right.
Floyd County has voiced support.
Right.
Randy Thompson, Judge Executive of Knott County, has voiced support.
That's correct.
And the Pike County Fiscal Court, they've addressed this issue, have they not?
They
But
did.
have they acted on it?
They did Monday. They addressed the issue, and they had some concerns about it.
I think that's where the meeting this coming Monday is coming
Yeah.
from, is the concerns voiced at that meeting. My understanding is that Magistrate Jeff Anderson will be there, and I look forward to discussing it with him.
Well, good, good. And you know, one of the concerns I think that Magistrate Harris, District 6 manager, brought up was that he was concerned that if the airport, or if it did fail, that it would leave the taxpayers with the burden. You know, there's no such provision in this agreement. Is that right, Bill?
That's correct.
So if this fails, the money that's been put up is all that's coming. There's no future commitment by or of any tax by the people of Pike County that'll be involved.
I understand the magistrate's concern about whether this is a viable business project or not, because frankly I didn't think it had a chance of working when it began. The first 2 or 3 years I was involved in this, I thought this has no chance at all of ever working. But over a period of time I've been convinced that it might work, and that if it might work, we need to give it a shot.
We do.
And there are carriers who have been approached or who approached Pikeville Pike County Airport. Which way did that work? Were they approached or did they approach? But these are carriers that are for-profit businesses. They're interested.
Luke Smith is a consultant that's known, if not nationally, at least regionally, for this type of work. And he approached about a dozen carriers. And we were hoping we would get one that would talk to us seriously.
Yes.
He's done an excellent job. We got 2. And these are carriers that are regional carriers that go to hubs such as Charlotte or Cleveland or Detroit, places like that. It would be the type of carrier that you see when you go to Huntington. If you buy a ticket in Pikeville, it'll be a ticket from Pikeville to Albuquerque or wherever.
Right.
It won't be a ticket from here to a hub. It'll be a ticket to wherever it is you're really going.
Right.
It'll be much like Huntington on a scaled back type of
These companies,
operation.
These companies, obviously, for confidentiality's sake, they don't want to disclose who they are, or I would imagine there are some folks that in the need to know right now.
It's
know who
instant
these are.
death.
Yeah.
We've been told it's sudden death.
Yeah.
If
Don't-
we disclose a name or an airport hub that we're specifically
Sure.
interested in, the project is dead.
Right. And that's understandable, and that's a normal course of business with those type of companies,
That's
much as
right.
they are with economic development, with local businesses, retail businesses coming to our area. There's a certain time frame that those businesses aren't disclosed until the time is right. So,
It's much like the frustration that Judge Rutherford had when a couple of his projects were outed prematurely.
Sure.
And it caused the project to go away.
and that's what we're after, is commercial air service to benefit the entire region, not just Pikeville, not just Pike County. Let's clarify, $750,000 grant, multi-county money is needed.
Right.
Knott County, Floyd County, they're in.
Right.
Pike County Fiscal Court still to address. I understand that, I guess they tabled the issue until a next meeting or another meeting. If Pike County Fiscal Court denies this request, what happens to commercial air service?
It's gone.
The $750,000 grant
$750,000 grant is gone.
and those multi-county dollars
They're going
go
to
to some other
central and
area of
western
the
part of
state.
the state. That's
And they're
right.
controlled by the Department. It's that important.
It is.
And we can hope that the Pike County Fiscal Court can get the answers they need, because I want to make sure people are clear that are tuned to this program about those dollars, that we hear coal severance tax dollars as someone outside of government speaking. We hear coal severance tax dollars and we imagine one big pile.
Right.
That's not necessarily the case.
No.
The coal severance tax dollars that take care of water projects,
Those are single county coal severance.
single county dollars that are given to Pike County from Pike County coal severance tax monies. Pike County tourism, I would imagine, benefits from some coal severance tax dollars.
Not really, unless they would submit some kind of project that would have to come through the legislator to get coal severance money for that. From what I understand, all the money that they receive comes from the local hotel taxes, and they also get some money from the state tourism board.
Sure.
There's some matching funds, that money that they spend, they get so much matching funds back.
Multi-county dollars are for economic development.
Right. Right.
And commercial air service, which has been proposed, which there is interest from regional or national carriers, at least two, to come to Pikeville, Pike County Airport. They're awaiting.
They are.
The grant's approved, 2 other counties involved, and once the multi-county is approved by 3 counties, then the money's in place and this goes forward from there.
That's correct.
What's the next step?
Next step is, I guess, recruiting the carriers, I guess, isn't it, Bill?
Well, the next step is firming up the ticket banks with the businesses.
Well, yeah.
There's still quite a few pieces to this puzzle. We have to learn how to comply with TSA requirements.
Security issues.
Security issues. Unfortunately, our national security is at risk, and this project will require having that type of security at Pikeville. It will require the TSA employees be located in Pikeville as full-time residents, and it will require some modification of the airport building, and it's pretty technical, and that by itself takes about another year.
Bill, I just heard some more jobs.
You did.
You've
did
got
hear some
construction
more jobs.
modifications to the terminal those are jobs for our people.
Right.
And computers.
These security
and
jobs.
The computers, the technicians, you have to have mechanics on site, you have to have de-ice capabilities. I mean, the list of things you have to have to complete this project is enormous, but this is the next step.
These would be employees of whom?
They would be employees, the TSA people would be employees of TSA.
Federal government.
The rest of the employees would be either employees of the airline or the airport, one of the two. And
So again, the money, the salaries, the benefits, not coming out of county coffers or city coffers, but they will be paid either by the airline or the Pikeville Pike County Airport Board.
And that's more taxes for the city and the county.
Sure. Seems to me it's a can't lose.
It is. Very much is.
We're just about out of time. Bill, as chairman of the Pikeville Pike County Airport Board, appreciate you being here. It has cleared the air because I'm an outsider. I'm seeing all of this take place from the outside, and I've learned some things, and it has cleared the air some. If you've got a final comment you'd like to make about this subject.
well, certainly I have gone from a doubting Thomas to a believer in the project.
Yeah.
It was a slow transition for me. It took me about 5 years to reach this point. I believe at this point our window of opportunity is closing.
Right.
We're losing population and we're struggling economically. I believe this is our last chance. And I don't know if it will succeed or not, but I think that some visionaries need to step up and make it happen.
It's not really a Hail Mary pass.
No.
It's really about a 3rd and 2 because a lot of the pieces are already in place. A lot of the
That's right.
yardage has already been gained. This is just that final carry to push it over the goal line. Barry Cheney, Pikeville City Commissioner, with a final comment.
Well, you know, Andrew, say we had gotten this service 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. You know, I want to ask this question. Where would Pikeville Medical Center be today if they had it? Where would UPike be today if they had it? A lot of people don't think about our legal industry, which I call it legal industry, but, you know, we have a federal courthouse here.
Sure.
You know, how much more could have been done in that federal courthouse if we'd had commercial air service? You know, how many new companies would have already been in here, and how much would that had softened the impact of the loss of the coal jobs that we've had in our region. You know, this is something that when you know I'm a little bit quicker to jump on something, I guess, than Bill is. When we first started talking about this, I was a big cheerleader of it, and you know, we've got to have it, because you know, when you read reports by Brookings, Cato, or any of those other think tanks and institutions, transportation is the key to good jobs. And you know, it's your highway system. Even Hal Rogers said it: good roads bring good jobs.
You betcha.
And commercial air service brings even better jobs.
And economic development is what it's all about. Pike County Airport Board Chairman Bill Hickman, thanks for being with us. Great information today.
Thank you.
Pikeville City Commissioner Barry Cheney, always a pleasure and always educational, and we'll look forward to it again. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I'm Andrew Joyce. You've been tuned to the City Commissioner's Report. Till next time, when we get an update on the airport status, good evening, everyone.